Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wal aqibatu lil muttaqeen was salatu was salam ala sayyidil awwalin wal akhirin Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. We're going to start something new in this book, and what we're going to do inshallah is we left off on page 70. On page Alhamdulillah. We're going to continue from this page 70, and we'll read about a page and a half from page 70. Then I'm going to ask everyone to turn to page 90. Turn to page 90. Just get an idea. Kitab nahi hai?
No, I gave it to the child.
Okay. Page 90, which is...
I have book here. Oh, I'm just borrowing today. Oh, okay. Give them this.
Sure, yeah.
Give them this.
They,
We can read both together.
yeah, they can use that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then we'll go to page 90. Can everyone look at page 90? Page 90 is the chapter on refraining from disobedience. Al-Qawl fi ijtinab al-ma'asi. So, because what's happening, Imam Ghazali now is going into the ibadat, the forms of worship. And he'll discuss different ways of worship and how we should be praying. But at the same time, we want to read the chapters on the maqsad that we want to study for too. So we're going to read about a page and a half from page 70 in the front of the book. Then, for the remaining of the class, we'll do from part 2. Okay? Does everyone understand? Any objections? Is that okay, inshallah? And you'll see why once we do it, one class. You'll see what I'm saying. So we left off, I think, at the first takbir, right? So, Bismillah. What we're discussing right now, Imam Ghazali rahimahullah is teaching us how to get the concentration in salah and to bring our heart into the actual prayer. And he was teaching us how that we can imagine that someone we respect and look up to is watching us pray. And the moment we think of that person looking at us praying, how do we pray? The whole prayer changes. Everything gets slower, more relaxed movements. And then Imam Ghazali said, now, you should be ashamed of yourself because you know Allah is watching you. You know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you, but yet for His creation you would pray so good when they're watching you. But when Allah is looking and you know He's looking, don't you feel ashamed of yourself? So this was one way.
No, but how? I mean, that can relax your physical movements, your all the appearance which you can see while you are doing the prayer. But how about the thoughts? Thoughts, a person cannot.
Yes,
think about
thoughts are only fought back with thoughts. So if you sit there and think the whole prayer, okay, I'm not going to think about something else. Shaitan's happy. Because all you did the whole prayer was think, I'm not going to think about something else. I'm not going to think about something else. You never once turned your attention to Allah. So don't think about not thinking about something else. Rather, as soon as you notice yourself thinking about something else, think about Allah. Bring yourself back that, no, I'm in front of Allah, I'm in front of Allah. Spend the whole prayer saying to yourself, I'm in front of Allah, I'm in front of Allah. Not thinking, wait, how do I fight these thoughts?
Abu Bakr Siddiq said when he heard the Surah Al-Ma'un, and he says, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. He said, Alhamdulillah, that he said, عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. And he didn't say fi salatihim sahun. Because no matter what,
you're going to have some portion.
Have some, thoughts that's going to deviate you from the prayer, no matter what. This is Abu Bakr Siddiq. Said, Alhamdulillah, they said they are forgetting the time of their prayers, but he didn't say they forget
inside the prayer
while they're doing the prayer.
But I mean, obviously you cannot control your thoughts.
Exactly.
But sometimes your thoughts are so out of the scope. I mean, they're like, I'm not talking about it could be some in conception of shirk, maybe?
That's why,
Common things
no,
are
no,
like
that's why Imam Ghazali told us that before we start, the preparation for your prayer is not after you start it. But from the beginning, stand there. Think what you're about to do. Remember, he went through, clear your mind before. A lot of times we just walk in, Allahu Akbar. And we never stop to think about our prayer before we actually said, Allahu Akbar. Let's read now, see what he says. He's going to give us some more practical ways. Let's read from, yes, exactly. From the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph on page 70, inshallah.
فإذا أقمت فانوي بقلبك أداء فرض الظهر لله تعالى وليكن ذلك حاضرا في قلبك عند تكبيرة الإحرام ولا يعزب ذلك عنك قبل الفراغ من التكبير.
Okay, so one paragraph. Once you have made the call to commence, form your intention in your heart of performing the obligatory rakats of Zuhr. So we're on prayer of Zuhr right now. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala most high. This intention should be present in your heart as you make the opening takbir. So as you make the opening takbir, you should have this intention that I'm praying these 4 rakats for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And should not leave your heart before you finish the takbir. So the whole time, Allahu Akbar, you have this intention. I'm praying these 4 rakats. Next.
وارفع يديك عند التكبير بعد إرسالهما أولا إلى منكبيك وهما مبسوطتان وأصابعهما منشورة ولا تتكلف ضمهما ولا تفريجهما وارفع بحيث يحاذي إبهامك شحمة أذنك ورؤوس أصابعك أعالي أذنيك وتحاذي بكفيك منكبيك فإذا استقرتا في مقرهما فكبر ثم ارسلهما برفق ولا تدفع يديك عند الرفع والإرسال إلى قدام دفعة ولا إلى خلف ولا تنفضهما يمينا وشمالا.
Okay, after letting your hands hang loose by your sides, raise them to your shoulders when saying the takbir, with palms open and fingers spread, but do not burden yourself trying to keep them together or separate. Leave them as they are, basically. You don't go and try to spread them and you don't try to close them. Leave them as they are. Raise them such that your thumbs are level with your earlobes, your fingertips with the top part of your ear, and your palms parallel with your shoulders. So if your hands are like this, obviously your thumb is in the middle, your palm is the lowest, and your fingertips are higher. So in this area, basically. Then he says, once they have settled in this position, now you're there, say Allahu Akbar. Then lower your hands gently. Think of all this as we're doing it. If you think of this while you're praying, now you're not just doing a ritual, you're doing your ibadah of Allah. You're thinking of all these things. Now your attention is on how you're doing it, not just somewhere else. This also helps in keeping the concentration. In raising your hands and lowering them, do not push them forward and backwards, nor shake them side to side. We talked about how sometimes after bringing them down, people swing them. No, he's saying that when you bring them down, bring them in calmness, in control, and bring them down into their position. Next. Once you... Yeah, you're right. No.
فإذا أرسلتهما فاستأنف رفعهما إلى صدرك وأكرم اليمين بوضعها على الشمال وانشر أصابع اليمنى في طول ذراعك اليسرى واقبض بها على كوعها.
Okay, so he says, now once you have let your hands go, raise them to your chest. Imam Ghazali is Shafi'i, so he's following the Shafi'i fiqh, and he's saying that you put them towards your chest. And the next thing he says, honor your right hand by placing it over your left. Spread out your fingers of your right hand along the length of your forearm and hold on to your hand with your wrist with your hand. So this is for males, the men in this direction, that these 2 fingers would go around the wrist and these ones would go on top of the forearm. So your fingers are on your forearm at the same time, you're holding your wrist at the same time. You're doing both. Then
وقل بعد التكبير الله أكبر كبيرا والحمد لله كثيرا وسبحان الله بكرة وأصيلا.
Yes, so now Imam Ghazali says, now after you say Allahu Akbar, he says, say this dua. Allahu Akbar kabira, Allah is most great. Alhamdulillahi kathira, praise to Allah in abundance. And subhanallah bukratan wa asila, and glory be to Allah morning and evening. Imam Ghazali will add a lot of prayers into this. This is to add your khushu' and your hudur, add your concentration and your mindfulness. He's adding prayers in that are optional to read to keep your mind focused during the prayer. One thing about those of us who accepted Islam, in the beginning, we had a lot of concentration in our prayer because we were thinking about everything we're doing, every act. Wait, next is this, next is that. Next. Then as you get used to it, then you fall into the category of everyone else that just goes through the motions. So you have to keep that way, where you're thinking about everything. Now, normally when a person accepts Islam, he has to learn things like Subhanallah wa bihamdi, Subhana Rabbil Azim. Now, there are a lot of ad'iyah of the prayer that, for example, what do you say in sajda besides Subhana Rabbil A'la? Which dua? That the Prophet ﷺ read. In sajda, inni sajadtu wajhi. لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ. There's other du'as, but what we do is we only know this du'a and bas, we're done. We can always learn more du'as to keep gaining closeness to Allah subhanahu.
We can make any dua from the Quran and the Sunnah.
In the prayer? From the Sunnah, yes.
In the sajda.
Yes. Let's keep going, keep going. The next thing to read, now the Hanafis will not read this. They will read Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik wa tabarak asmuk wa ta'ala jadduk wa la ilaha ghayruk. The Shafi'i read this after they say takbir. ثم اقرأ.
ثم اقرأ وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا مسلما وما أنا من المشركين إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له بذلك أمرت وأنا من المسلمين.
Yes, so recite this. I have turned my face to the one who created the heavens and earth in submission as a pure monotheist. And I am not of those who associate others with Him. Indeed, my prayer, my worship, my life, my death are for Allah Most High, Lord of the worlds, who has no partner. Thus have I been commanded, and I am those who submit. Now, even the Hanafis can read this. This is sunnah to read. If we learn it, you have to learn it. Rasulullah ﷺ read this dua. It's a very powerful dua if you know what you're reading. Because look what you're saying. وَجَدْتُ وَجْهِي, I have turned my face. It's reminding you what you're doing. If you think about these things while you're reading them. Next one.
ثم قل أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ثم اقرأ الفاتحة بتشديداتها واجتهد في الفرق بين الضاد والضاء وقل آمين ولا تصله بقولك ولا الضالين وصلا.
Okay, so listen. He says, then recite ta'awwadh, meaning I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed shaitan. A'udhu billah min ash-shaytanir rajim. Then recite Fatiha with all its double consonants. Like, make sure you read the tashdid. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. All of the, make sure you read these. Then what else? And make effort to distinguish clearly between Dhad and Dha. Dhad is the hardest letter in Arabic to pronounce. The way you pronounce Dhad is two ways. You take the corners of your tongue and they should touch the upper back molars, the corners of your tongue. And from there, Dhad comes out. It's very difficult. Arabi, lughatul Dhad, okay? Arabi is called lughatul Dhad, the language of Dhad, because it's the hardest letter to pronounce, very difficult, okay?
But unfortunately, some people, they don't only have problem pronouncing it, they even pronounce it za.
Now, this is what he's saying here. Look what he's saying. He says, make sure you clearly distinguish between Dhad and Za. You don't say wala zalin. Like, there's a brother, his name's Rizwan, and another name Ridwan. But they're both spelled the same way. They're actually the same name. But one's Pakistani, one's Arab. So we call the Pakistani Rizwan, It's not riz. Ridwan. Okay?
Ridwan.
Ridwan. There's no such thing as riz. Unfortunately, that comes into our Quran too. Okay, so we have to be careful that we don't say wala zalin. We have to say wala dhalin. You have to try your best. Try your best. Wala dhalin. Again, I am not a qari. You have to get a proper qari. I'm not a qari. Those who have spent years perfecting these letters, it's very difficult. But he's saying, make an effort. Then say Ameen. Ameen means accept our prayer. Ameen, accept our prayer. Without joining it immediately to your saying, غَيْرِ مَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِينَ. Meaning, don't connect it with وَلَا الضَّالِينَ آمين. No, وَلَا الضَّالِينَ آمين. It's separate. It's not one word. And, okay, did you read further? Okay.
واجهر بالقراءة في الصبح والمغرب والعشاء أعني في الركعتين الأوليين إلا أن تكون مأموما واجهر بالتأمين واقرأ في الصبح بعد الفاتحة
Oh,
من
1 second. Okay, so now he says, then recite loudly in Fajr, Maghrib, and Isha. Fajr, Maghrib, Isha, you recite loudly. That is in the first 2 rakats of each prayer. Unless you are a follower behind the Imam. You do not recite behind the Imam. Because the recitation of the Imam is enough, is on behalf of everyone. So you do not recite behind the Imam. And say Ameen out loud. This is Shafi. Hanafi will say Ameen quietly. But they must say it though. This is very important.
Question.
Yes?
The sister supposed to say Ameen loud too?
No. Quietly.
Why do some recite loud so you can hear them, and some recite that you can't even hear sometimes?
Recite what?
The prayer, the Fatiha, anything.
Oh, okay. Listen. Yes, look here closely. He says recite loudly in Fajr, Maghrib, Isha.
Right.
So those are the only prayers that you recite loudly in the first 2 rakats.
Sometimes you can't hear them, even when they recite.
Okay, but listen. In the second 2 rakats of these prayers, he'll be reciting lowly. In the first 2 rakats, he should be reciting audible so that you hear him. Okay, so if it's the first 2 rakats and you don't hear him, he's doing something wrong. You should say Subhanallah and remind him. In the first 2 rakats. But in the second 2 rakats, if he's reciting low, that's what he's supposed to do. Okay, so Fajr, Maghrib, Isha are all loud, audible salats, audible prayers. So you should be able to hear him say in the first 2 rakats, Fatiha and a surah. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
As a follower, we don't say even a Fatiha to ourselves.
No.
Even he is reciting loudly or slowly.
Yes, the Quran says, وَإِذَا قُرِيَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ. When the Quran is being recited, then be quiet and listen. So what that means is, when the Imam is in the 3rd and 4th rak'ah, is the Quran being recited? Yes. So the Quran says, be quiet when the Quran is being recited. Not reading.
But you're not hearing it.
Yes, but what does the ayah say? When the Quran is being recited. It doesn't say when you hear the Quran.
So basically, all your
Now,
ayahs are quiet.
someone asked Abu Huraira, he said, اقرأ في نفسك. Read it in your heart. Read it in your own heart though. So that your attention is to the surah.
Not from the tongue.
Not from the tongue. Let's continue. Now next he's going to teach us what surahs to read. What surahs to read.
واقرأ في الصبح بعد الفاتحة من الصور طوال المفصل وفي المغرب من قصاره وفي الظهر والعصر والعشاء من أوساطه نحو والسماء ذات البروج وما قاربها في الصبح وفي الصبح في السفر قل يا أيها الكافرون وقل هو الله أحد.
Okay, so now what surahs should we read in our prayer? In Fajr and Dhuhr. Okay. After the Fatiha in Fajr prayer, recite from the longer surahs. From Hujurat to Buruj. From Surah Hujurat to Buruj. Okay? And then in Maghrib, from the shorter. So Maghrib, you're supposed to recite Short surahs, not long. People have to go home and things like that. It should be short. This is a big problem nowadays. Imams reciting long surahs. Brother came for Maghrib, he needs to go home, and the Imam is reciting half a juz. When the Rasulullah ﷺ got very angry at one of the Sahaba for reciting very long. So it should be mukhtasar. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he wrote the exact surahs, what to read in which prayers. And that's what he's referring to now. So, from Maghrib, in Maghrib you should read from Nas to Idha Zulzila. And in Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha, from the middle surahs. Tariq and Bayyina. The middle length. They're not very long, they're not very short. Such as Buruj and those of similar length. Now, in Fajr, when traveling, recite Ikhlas and Kul Ya Ayyuhal Kafirun, short surahs while traveling. Okay? So again, he's teaching us what to recite in our prayer. Continue.
ولا تصل آخر السورة بتكبيرة الركوع ولكن افصل بينهما بمقدار قولك سبحان الله.
Yes, so do not join the end of the surah with takbir and bowing. So sometimes people have the habit, as soon as they finish the surah, they're saying Allahu Akbar going into ruku. They barely finish reciting the surah. He's still reciting, he's going down into ruku. No. Finish the surah, say Allahu Akbar and go into ruku. Not while you're finishing the surah. This is very bad. We finish the surah, Allahu Akbar, and then go in. Okay? He's pulling out all of our common mistakes. One second, I'm sorry. And do not join the end of the surah with the takbir of the bowing. Rather, pause between them for as long as it takes to say, Subhanallah, glory be to Allah. Now again, for someone new learning the salah, you can't imagine that you could do all these things together. Right? Because we think about it like, wait, I just finished the surah, now what's next? Then this, then that. But once a person has been praying for a long time, he has to be mindful to keep everything in its place.
وكن في جميع قيامك مطرقا قاصرا نظرك على مصلاك فذلك أجمع لهمك وأجدر لحضور قلبك وإياك أن تلتفت يمينا وشمالا في صلاتك.
Yes, he's teaching us how to keep our attention during the prayer. The whole time you are standing, keep your head lowered and gaze to your prayer area, not looking here and there. For this provides greater concentration and encourage more attentiveness of your heart. You are cautioned not to glance right or left while you're praying.
Is it okay to close your eyes?
If there's distractions, you can close your eyes, but it's not recommended to close your eyes. But if it's necessary, you need to keep your concentration, then yes, you can close your eyes. But it's very important, we control our gaze. Ulama say that people always talk about lowering their gaze outside. That when you go somewhere, I can't control my gaze, I always look at this, haram. Well, if you learn how to control your gaze in your prayer, you'll be able to control your gaze out of prayer also. So learn how to control your gaze in prayer first. Train yourself to control yourself. While you're standing, where do you look? At the place of sajda. In ruku, you look at the back of the feet. In standing, you look at the place of sajda. In sajda, you look towards your nose. In jalsa, when you're sitting, you're looking in your lap. Control your gaze in prayer. This will help us control our gaze outside of prayer. And one more paragraph, inshallah, from this section. ثم كبر
ثم كبر للركوع وارفع يديك كما سبق ومد التكبير إلى الانتهاء إلى الركوع ثم ضع راحتيك على ركبتيك وأصابعك منشورة وانصب ركبتيك ومد ظهرك وعنقك ورأسك مستويا كالصفيحة الواحدة وجاف مرفقيك عن جنبيك والمرأة لا تفعل ذلك.
Yes.
وقل سبحان ربي العظيم ثلاثة.
Yes, very good. So listen, he says now, when going into ruku, this is an important paragraph. This shows something. Imam Ghazali says, when going into ruku, say takbir, raising your hand. He's Shafi, so is Shafi fiqh, you raise the hands before going into ruku. And prolong the takbir. The takbir should be said while you're moving. These are takbir al-intiqal. These are takbir while you're moving. Allahu Akbar. The whole movement you're saying Allahu Akbar. From the beginning to the end. Okay? And then he says, put your hands on your knees and spread your fingers, holding your knees. And your neck, back, and back, all should be in a flat line. This is important. Not for the sisters, but for the brothers, it's very important that your back should be...
You cannot see.
You can't see?
Sisters
I know,
cannot see.
I know, don't want them to see.
Why they have to see what they not see?
No, they do differently. They're ruku. Sarah, can you show them ruku? Can you show them ruku? So the men, their ruku is like this. The back should be such that you can place a cup on your back. Straight. The back should be straight. And your fingers are on your knees. Not like this, not with your knees bent, but your back should be straight. And the woman, just enough to touch her knees. This is her. And here Imam Ghazali says clearly, وَالْمَرْأَةُ لَا تَفْعَلُ كَذَلِكَ. A woman doesn't do this. This is a clear proof. Imam Ghazali at his time is telling you that the woman's prayer is different from the man's prayer. This is a fitna today that a lot of the women think that they do sajda the way we do. By no means does a woman do sajda the way we do, with the up like that. No, they do it flat. And likewise with the ruku. I was saying, sisters, that here Imam Ghazali says clearly, a woman does not do this, but keeps her limbs close together. This is centuries ago. Imam Ghazali is setting the record that a woman's prayer is different from a man's prayer. Unfortunately, today people have lost that and they don't know. So what happens is a lot of sisters, they grow up and see their dad praying, so they just pray the way he prayed. They never were taught how to pray, so it just passed on. So now today the younger girls, they don't know how to pray. They were never taught that method of praying. But the woman's prayer is different from the man's prayer. Different completely.
Specifically for these two actions.
For the whole prayer. The whole prayer.
Brother, is it difference in ruku or is it difference in jafi?
The ruku of a woman is just enough to touch her knees. She doesn't bend the way we bend.
90-degree angle.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, exactly. The sajda also, it's not going to be up the way we do sajda. The sajda is flatter, really low to the ground. Unless when they're pregnant, it's very difficult for them to lay that low.
So as possible, she can go.
Yes. The voice, Ameen, is low. The hands would be on her chest.
It's more kind of closed movements.
Yes, because the woman is mastur. Yes, there's a exactly. Exactly. The feet are closer. This is all the woman's way of praying, not like a man. But most women learned from their dad, who doesn't know this. They just watch them pray.
Yes, true.
I'm telling you, that's how it happened. And then they just keep passing it down, and that's the way. And then there's a hadith. Rasulullah ﷺ says, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Pray the way you see me pray. So this is the dalil that they pray that way. There are many ahadith. My wife has gathered an entire portfolio of hadith and sayings of sahabiyat and tabi'een that prove their prayer is completely different. But they take one hadith, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli, pray the way I pray. Now everyone should pray the way the Prophet prayed. Okay, go lead prayer then. But unfortunately they're doing that today.
Yeah.
Okay, the prayer is different. It's different styles of praying. Different styles of praying for the men and women. Okay? Yes?
There was a story I read ages ago, and I can't remember who the lady was, but she was the first Muslima to be martyred. And they realized that she had been killed because nobody heard her morning prayer. Now, if the people are walking by her house and normally hear her pray, Fajr, she had to have been praying loud enough for somebody outside the room to hear it.
I wouldn't be able to answer the story because, I need to know where it's from. And,
The first woman martyred in Islam
was Sumayya.
it was Sumayya. So that
I
the
don't...
story does not...
You'd have to find out where you heard it from, sister.
Okay, I'll try
I
to.
don't think they got the order of...
I know. That's what I'm saying. I need to know where it came
That
from.
was in Makkah, was it?
Okay, can we turn to page...
Before even she prayed.
It's fine. Let's turn to page 90, inshallah, and read from there. Page 90. Brother Talibi? Now, Imam Ghazali now in part 2. Everything in part 1 is dealing in ta'at, obedience to Allah. In part 2, Imam Ghazali talks about another aspect of what is necessary for us. Let's listen to what Imam Ghazali has to say here. Al-Qism al-Thani, Bismillah.
القسم الثاني القول في اجتناب المعاصي.
Part 2 on refraining from disobedience. Listen closely to this chapter.
اعلم أن الدين شطران.
Know that religion is made of 2 parts.
أحدهما ترك المعاصي والآخر فعل الطاعات وترك المناهي هو الأشد.
He says that one of them is refraining from disobedience, and the other is performing acts of obedience. And the first is more important and more serious and more difficult.
فالطاعة يقدر عليها كل أحد.
Stop there. He says everyone has the capability to do good deeds. Everyone. But
وترك الشهوات لا يقدر عليه إلا الصديقون.
he says, but only the truly sincere can abandon their appetites and desires. So he said there's 2 things. Doing good and staying away from evil. The good part everyone can do. Everyone can come and pray nafils. Everyone can give money fi sabilillah. The hard part is not doing the haram in the first place. That's the hard thing.
ولذلك قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم المهاجر من هجر السوء والمجاهد من جاهد هواه.
Yes, this is why Rasulullah ﷺ thus did the Messenger of Allah say, the true immigrant is the one who abandons evil, and the true warrior is the one who fights his passions. المعصية بالجوارح.
المعصية بالجوارح. واعلم أنك إنما تعصي الله تعالى بجوارحك.
Listen, now remember, Imam Ghazali was using psychology and logic to prove to us how we should be obedient to Allah. He's going to do it here again. Listen very closely. His method of teaching us is amazing. Is amazing. Look at this. He says, know that you disobey Allah Most High with your limbs. And
وهي نعمة من الله عليك وأمانة لديك فاستعانتك بنعمة الله تعالى على معصيته غاية الكفران وخيانتك في أمانة الله في أمانة أودعكها الله غاية الطغيان.
Stop there. He says, know that you disobey Allah Most High with your limbs, while they are a bounty from Allah and a trust to you. So you're using these limbs, which are gifts from Allah to you, to disobey Allah. So you're using the bounties of Allah Most High to disobey Him is the ultimate ingratitude. And you're betraying the trust He has placed with you is the ultimate tyranny. Indeed.
فإن أعضاءك رعاياك فانظر كيف ترعاها فكلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته.
He says, indeed the parts of your body are your subjects. You are the king in this kingdom, and they're your subjects. They're to work for you, not they control you. He says, so pay attention how you govern them. Each is a shepherd, and each of you is answerable for his flock. That's a hadith. Do you understand what he's saying? That you disobey Allah with these limbs, but these limbs are gifts from Allah. You're using the exact same thing, which is a gift, a bounty from Allah, in His disobedience. How is that so? Continue.
واعلم أن جميع أعضائك ستشهد عليك في عرصات القيامة بلسان ضلق يفضحك الله تعالى على ملأ من الخلائق.
Yes, he says, know that your limbs will testify against you in the plains of judgment with clear, eloquent speech, as Allah will expose your faults in front of the assembly of creation. Rasulullah ﷺ has told us in the hadith that a person will come on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and all of these sins that he did will be presented. You did this, you did this, you did that, you did this. And he will think, you know what? Nobody saw me do that. There's no proofs. Allah will bring the angels. He will say, I don't believe them, I didn't see them, they weren't there. Allah will say, okay. He will cause his mouth to be sealed and tell his limbs to speak. Rasulullah ﷺ said the first limb to speak will be his thigh.
Which one?
Your thigh. Your thigh will be the first limb to speak. How was this thigh used? And all the limbs will speak. In the Quran, the ayah which is next, read the ayah.
قال الله تعالى يوم تشهد عليهم ألسنتهم وأيديهم وأرجلهم بما كانوا يعملون.
Yes, and Allah Most High says, on this day we will seal their mouths, and their hands will speak to us, and their feet will testify as to what they have earned. وقال تعالى
وقال تعالى اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون.
Subhanallah. On that day when their tongues, their hands, their feet will testify against them as to what they used to do, and Allah Most High says, on this day we will seal their mouths, and their hands will speak to us, and their feet will testify as to what they earned. So these very limbs that you are sinning and disobeying Allah, these limbs will testify against you on Yawm al-Qiyamah.
فاحفظ جميع بدنك وخصوصا أعضاءك السبعة فإن جهنم لها 7 أبواب لكل باب منهم جزء مقسوم ولا يتعين لتلك الأبواب إلا من عصى الله تعالى بهذه الأعضاء وهي العين والأذن واللسان والبطن والفرج واليد والرجل.
So he says, guard your entire body. Listen closely now. Guard your entire body, especially 7 parts of it. 7 things, guard them. 7 things. For verily hell has 7 gates. In the Quran we learn, لَهَا سَبَعَةُ أَبْوَابٍ, that hell has 7 gates, through each of which a particular group is destined to enter. The only ones designated to enter these gates are those who disobey Allah Most High by means of these parts. What are they? Let's look. The eye, the ear, the tongue, the stomach, the private part, the hand, and the foot. أما العين.
أما العين فإنما خلقت لك لتهتدي بها في الظلمات وتستعين بها في الحاجات وتنظر بها إلى عجائب ملكوت الأرض والسماوات وتعتبر بما فيها من الآيات.
Yes, he says, look, the eye was created. Why did Allah give you an eye? You know why? Allah gave you this eye. It was created for you only so that you may be guided by it in the darkness. That you might be helped by it with respect to your needs. You use it for your necessities. That you might see the wonders in the dominions of the heavens and the earth. You look at the sky, you look at the mountains, you look at a beautiful day, you look at the morning. Remember Allah. That's why Allah gave you this eye. And consider the signs that they contain. فَاحْفَظْهَا عَنْ أَرْبَعَ.
فاحفظها عن 4 أن تنظر بها إلى غير محرم وإلى صورة مليحة بشهوة نفس أو تنظر بها إلى مسلم بعين الاحتقار أو تطلع بها إلى عيب مسلم.
4 things now. 4 things that you need to check your eye from doing. 4 things. That's all. From looking at a marriageable person, anyone that is amongst those who is marriageable for you, whether male or female. This is for Imam Shafi. Even for the women to look at a man is haram. The Hanafi opinion is lighter in that it's permissible for her to look as long as there's no fear of any fitna. But for a man to look at a woman, now, interesting thing, it says غير mahram. Unfortunately today we forget that our cousins are غير mahram. Cousins are غير mahram. And today it's just, forget cousins. Outside the masjid, we just talk to everyone. Right? Just as if we just didn't finish praying, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To look at each other this way is haram. And we're using this same eye to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Second thing we should not look at. Looking at a beautiful form in a lustful way. Having lust for something, looking at, lusting over that thing. Number 3, very important. From looking at a Muslim with an eye of disdain. Looking down at someone. He did that. Doesn't he know that's haram? This guy, he does this. Looking down, ihtiqar. Looking down at someone. And number 4, see, this is how insan is made. If I have something on my cheek, you're going to say, look, there's something on your cheek. But you don't see there's something on your cheek too. So look at number 4. From being on the lookout for another Muslim's faults. Sometimes that's all we look for. What's going on? Look what he's doing. I'm good, I'm fine. Look at him, look at him. No, let your faults busy you so much, you don't even have time to look at someone else's faults. I have so many faults, I don't have time to think about what faults you have. I have too many. I have to worry about my getting to Jannah. We ignore the faults that we know about ourselves and look at things we think are faults in other people. Meaning you know you do this thing. Okay, whatever. But I think he's doing that. I think he's doing that, but I know I'm doing this. We ignore what we're doing. 4 things not to look at. A non-mahram. Haram. It's not permissible. Listen to this. In this society, what happens is, you often see other women. You know what this does to you? You know what this does? You never become satisfied with your wife. Because every other minute you're seeing a non-mahram woman. In the society of our pious predecessors and other places today, the only non-mahram woman you ever saw was the one you married. You never looked at anything else. You never were unsatisfied with your wife. Because she was the essence of beauty to you. Now today you'll see so many forms that mentally our youth have made up their beautiful make-believe wife. She'll have these features, that feature, this feature, that feature. Doesn't even exist in the world. Imam Shafi, rahimahullah, he saw the shin of one woman and his memory was affected. We see, what do we see? Subhanallah. And you expect yourself to be content? You expect yourself to be content with your wife when you're looking at everything else? That's why the contentment is not there. Lower your gaze for your own. Lower your gaze or else you're going to torture yourself. When you look at everything, you're torturing yourself. Lower your gaze for the sake of your own contentment. Understand this point. Imagine that the only woman a man saw was his wife. He's not going to be uncontented with his wife. Because this is the essence of beauty for him. But today, look at everything. And then you're never happy. Not only that, the billboards and the models, it's a make-believe picture. So now you'll be even more discontented because they're setting something you can never achieve. It's not even physically possible. Lower our gazes, brothers and sisters. We have to do this for our own contentment. Men more so. Because men love what they see, women love what they hear. That's why men lie and women put on makeup. Okay? Men love what they see, women love what they hear. So lower your gaze for your own peace of heart. Lower your gaze as much as possible. And always we should be doing istighfar.
There are 2 things I want to mention here. You said that to look down on a Muslim. Unfortunately, there are among the Muslim culture, some people, they don't want to even interact with another Muslim just because his race is poor and the other person is rich.
Exactly.
And some of them actually, I know them that they don't even come to the masjid because they don't want to interact with poor people.
Subhanallah.
And I went to the masjid of Annapolis.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was told from my brothers there that why you left the rich people and you came to the poor. They have this mentality
Subhanallah.
in their. And by the way, there are ladies that they don't come to the masjid at all because they don't want to interact with ladies here that are poor.
Imam
Okay, that's
Ghazali is telling us we never look down. It's hadith.
the same, isn't it? Well, unfortunately, they are.
Let's read a little more. I know our time is running out.
I want to say something else, brother. You might
Okay,
need to draw a line
go ahead.
of lowering the gaze, okay? Because some people, they might think that you cannot talk at all to a woman as a human. For instance, you are the imam,
Yes.
and a woman come in to ask you questions. You are allowed to talk to her. That's something is not
Differentiate, brothers, between looking and talking.
Yeah. And there is also the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Shu'bah ibn al-Mughira, when he came and he told the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he got engaged, and he said,
Okay.
"Nadarta ilayha?"
Yes. Now, when are we allowed to look? When we are looking to get engaged. This for sure is time. Another thing, remember, once Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha and one of the other azwaj, they were in the house. When one of the Sahaba, Ibn Maktoum, he's a blind Sahabi, he came in. So Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha and the other, they're just sitting there. So the Prophet ﷺ said, are you going to do ihtijab? Are you going to do hijab from him? He said, Huwa a'ma, he's blind. You know what the Prophet ﷺ said to them? Are you blind? Are you blind? So we need to understand at least, okay, what do we learn from here? At least let's know what's right and what's wrong and seek Allah's forgiveness for what's wrong. Don't sit there and say it's okay. Recognize what's wrong. At the end of the day, brothers, we have enough sins to cry all night to Allah. We have enough sins from going to work and school, we can cry to Allah all night. So may Allah give us tawfiq. I wanted to do a little more. That's it, inshallah. We'll stop here. And we'll do this from now on, from front and back. From both parts. May Allah give us tawfiq to make this a reality. And may Allah forgive us for our shortcomings. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika.